Hi, my name is Austin, and today I'm going to be providing a demo of VoiceOver, which is a screen reader for Mac OS. Some of the most popular ones, though, are JAWS and NVDA, which are both PC-based, as well as TalkBack, which works with Android. What I'm going to basically do is visit some websites that are accessible and not accessible and kind of show you, some of the things to keep in mind when it comes to web accessibility and document accessibility when using a screen reader. It's important to keep in mind that all the missing things and the errors that I'm going to point out are fixable, and you can actually fix them by checking out some of my other videos that cover things like alternative text, heading levels, and hyperlinks, because these things can be easily corrected. So without further ado, let's go check out this demo. So we are on the WebAIM Million webpage. This is a study of the top 1,000 websites looking at accessibility errors, and the common average accessibility errors per page is 51.4, which is a very high number, and it means that the vast majority of websites are inaccessible. As it says here, 97.4% of all home pages have a detectable WCAG failure. So this is down from February 2020. That they do the study every year in February, but it's still very high, and it shows that we need a lot of work when it comes to document and web accessibility to ensure equal access for screen reader users and other people with disabilities, as well as just the public in general, because the more accessible the site is, the more you can use it in a variety of ways and engage with the content. So I first wanted to point that out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a demo from the W3 website. This demo actually has an accessible homepage and an inaccessible homepage. So I'm going to show you the inaccessible homepage first using a screen reading software.
Link. Skip to inaccessible demo page. 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 Heading level 1 3 items. Inaccessible homepage. Before and after demonstration. Hyphen. Inaccessible homepage. Before and after demonstration. Improving the website using Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. WCAG 2.0. List 6 items. Link. Overview. Current location. Home. List 2 items level 2. Inaccessible. Inaccessible. And one more item. Group. Inaccessible. Homepage. Link. Inaccessible homepage report. Accessible. Visited. Link. Accessible homepage. Link. Accessible homepage report. Link. Show annotations. Link. News. Link. Tickets. Link. Survey. Link. Template. Demo starts here. /border underscore left underscore top dot gif. And two more items. And two more items. Group. /border underscore left underscore top dot gif image. /border underscore top dot gif image. /border underscore right underscore top dot gif image. /border underscore left dot gif image. Red dot with a white letter C that symbolizes a moon crescent as well as the sun. This logo is followed by a black banner that says City Lights, which is the name of this online portal. Finally, the slogan of the portal, your access to the city, follows in the turquoise green handwriting style and with a slight slant across the top banner. Link, image, and 4 more items, and 3 more items, and 2 more items. Group. Red dot with a white letter C that symbolizes a moon crescent as well as the sun. This logo is followed by a black banner that says City Lights, which is the name of this online portal. Finally, the slogan of the portal, your access to the city, follows in the turquoise green handwriting style and with a slight slant across the top banner. Link, image, group. To get missing image descriptions, open the context menu. Unlabeled image. You are currently on the unlabeled image inside of /top underscore weather.gif unlabeled image. /top underscore logo underscore next underscore star.gif unlabeled image. You are currently on the unlabeled image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So with the content at the beginning, where it was before the demo actually started, it was all very well described, where it had home, news, and inaccessible and accessible. And then we jumped into the City Lights content, and what you may have noticed is there's a lot of images that were not described, a lot of links that were not described. We also had this very long description of the banner, where the banner could have been marked, as decorative. It could have just been much shorter, but it was very long description that was not very necessary to accessing the website. I'm going to keep going here and just explore and see what else we find.
Quick menu. Greater than /mark.gif image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So this is another one that should be marked probably as decorative. If you can see, the little black box is circling around just a line here where it doesn't convey anything, and it could just be a decorative image. It doesn't need to be anything.
Traffic, construction work on main road. You are currently on a text element inside of web content. Today, Tuesday, the 1st of June 2020, /marker2 underscore w.gif image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So this is more images that should be marked as decorative.
Slash marker 2 underscore w dot gif image. You are current. Slash marker 2 underscore t dot gif. Unlabeled image. Unlabeled image. Slash nav underscore home dot gif. Slash marker 2 underscore w dot gif image. Unlabeled image. Unlabeled image. Slash nav underscore news dot gif. You are currently on an unlabeled image inside of web content. To click this link, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So what we're seeing here as well with the news is, it is also unlabeled where it should be labeled.
Slash marker 2 unlabeled image. Slash marker 2 unlabeled image. Unlabeled. Slash marker 2 under slash blank under. Welcome to City Lights. City Lights is the new portal for visitors and residents. Find slash headline underscore middle dot gif unlabeled image. Link. 8 wavelengths to temperatures. Slash headline under link. Mandates 9 Watson. Slash headline underscore middle dot gif unlabeled image. Link. Lack of brain time research. You are currently on
so we are seeing.
To click this link, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So these links are labeled, which is good. So these news links that are there are labeled, which is nice.
Image, empty group. You are currently on empty group inside of web content.
But you would think that these images here, which could be conveying meaning, this person, the violin, and the picture of the brain, those things could have image description, but they do not.
Image, empty group. After 3 years of effort, city scientists now agree that the primary cause link. News. Mayor. These kinds of crimes need link. News.html. Brain donations. Huge drop off in brain donations. Use it. Link. News.html. You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So this link just is saying more, I think.
Brain donations. Huge drop off. Link. News.html. You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So this link just says news. News doesn't tell me what I'm clicking on. I need something that describes where it's going. Otherwise, I don't know if I'm just looking at the links and skimming around the web page.
Elsewhere on the web. You are currently on. Please see the following websites for important information. City Lights take no responsibility for their content. For artichoke advice, call the number below. You are currently on a text element inside of web bullet image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, Killer Bees. You are current link. Click here. You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So what we're seeing with the Killer Bees and the onions is it says click here. We should instead have the Killer Bees itself be the link, and that way we know where we're going. Same with the onions. If that was the link, I'd know I'm going to onions. Instead, it just says click here for both, which is very confusing for screen readers.
Period. You are currently on a text element in bullet image. Onions. Link. Period. Artichoke advice telephone hotline 1234 56789 image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control Option slash blank underscore 5x5 dot gif image. You are currently on slash marker 2 underscore t dot gif image slash blank underscore 5x5 dot gif image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So what I want to do before I end and we go to the one that's accessible, I'm going to hit Control Option U.
Links menu.
And we're going to look at the links a little bit and the heading levels and kind of explore the web page here. And I'll just point out some things. So what we can see here is, again, as I was kind of pointing out, there's a lot of unlabeled image links. There's this news HTML, doesn't tell you anything. Click here, read more. Those don't really tell you where you're going. It's a lot of the links are not fully described, and it's very confusing if you don't know where you're going.
Link. Show annotations. Link. Unlabeled image. Link. Mandates not link. Unlabeled image. Unlabeled image. Slash nav underscore facts dot gif.
Like, for example, I don't know where that one really goes, and it's confusing. I'm going to then go to the next one.
Menu. Articles menu. No items in. Form controls. Headings menu.
So what we have here is only one heading. So there's no headings built into this sample site. You need heading levels to convey where the top of the website is, where the bottom, where the key things are, so that the screen reader user is able to use those headings to navigate and find the chunks of website that are relevant and important to them. So that's not here, so it makes it much more difficult to navigate. I also want to point out that there is no navigation section where there are key links. That generally is recommended to have some key links for navigation to going to, for example, like the accessibility page, or different things for like contact us or things like that might be in navigation, but we don't have that either. So that's kind of a quick overview of this inaccessible site. Let's go to the accessible one now.
Link. News. List 4 items. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space. Link. Tickets. 3 of 4. You are Chrome has new window. Link. Survey. 4 of 4. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
I think one thing we're seeing here is the link to the survey is direct and it's not showing the image itself. I think before there was the image and the survey, so that's already looking much better.
Link, home, 1 of 4, list 4 items, heading level 2, today, traffic, construction, go, button, quick menu, explore site by topic, sunny spells, image, city lights, your access to the city, image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
Remember how before the city lights had all this other information that was not relevant and way too long? Now they've shortened it down and it's much easier to listen to because I'm getting the key logo of the web page, but I'm not having to listen to all the additional stuff that is not relevant.
Sunny spells, image. You are currently on an image inside of web content. To explore site by quick menu, go to list, link, end of list. Heading level 1, welcome to city lights. End of list, link, survey, 4 of 4, list 4 items. Heading level 2, list 4 items. You are currently on a list inside of web content.
This is another key thing I want to point out. They're using a list feature, so it's telling me if there's 4 items in the list. Before it did not do that. This is very helpful if you're using a screen reader because the screen reader is going to tell you, oh, you're on this particular content that has 4 items in it, so I know as I'm going across how many there are. If you think about this from the standpoint of the screen reader user, it's very confusing if you're just going through and you don't know how many. You could have missed one if there's like 6 or 8, the more items you add in. So having it say this is a list of this many items definitely is very helpful.
Link, end of list. Heading level 1. Well, city lights is the new portal for visitors and residents. Find heading level 2, link. 8 wave links to temperatures. You are currently on heading level 2 inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow. After 3 years of effort, city scientists now agree that the primary cause of the 2003 heat wave was hot air from. You are currently on a text element inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
So what we're having here is we're having it jump down and read us what's going on, which is good.
Link, heat wave, full story. You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control, Option, space. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
I think what they've decided is these images are pretty much decorative and that what the description below for the article is what's important. And then they have heat wave, full story. This is much easier to know what's going on. If I go back to the other one, you can see the links just say more. More does not tell me anything, but this other one repeats the story so you know where you're going.
You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control, heading level, mayor, link, violin, heading level, brain donate, link, brain donations, full brain donation, heading level 2, link, lack of brain time research. You are currently on heading level 2 inside of web content. To exit this web area, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
Notice these are all heading level 2 as well, which means that they've added heading levels so you're able to navigate and know where you are in the document and what you're looking at, which helps as well.
Heading level 2, elsewhere on the web. Please see the following websites for important information. City lights take no responsibility for their content. For artichoke advice, call the number below. List 2 items. You are currently on the list inside of web content.
You can see here with the killer bees and onions, they're now using the full link instead of the click here. And then we also have it being a list of 2 items again, which is really helpful. So those are some examples. You can see on the side it says buy tickets, take surveys. So all the links are very well described. If I go and do a Control Option U,
web spots menu, articles menu, window spot, links, headings, form control, no items, article, window spot, articles menu, window spots, links, headings, links menu, headings menu.
You can see with the headings, there's only one heading once at the top of the page, which is perfect. Then you have, actually, there is a second heading level 1. Generally, from my understanding, you only want one heading level 1 on the web page. I think what's actually happening is that the very top is the heading level 1 for the regular page, and then when we get to this heading level 1, welcome to City Lights, that is the heading level 1 for the accessible site. So that's kind of how it's working from there on. And you can see the rest are heading level 2, which is correct, and if they had multiple headings, they should be 3 and 4 going down. If you go to the links, you can see all these links are now described, and it's very clear where things go. I particularly like how they have like the search and they have, the killer bees. Everything is really nicely described so you know where you're going.
Articles menu.
So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to switch it up.
Inside of web content.
And we're going to go to a real website, American Airlines website, and we're going to look at their accessibility. Airline websites are very accessible generally because they have to meet government standards for accessibility that are actually laid out for them and particularly AA WCAG 2.0 or 2.1 is the standard. So we are going to hopefully have a very accessible site here. Now, what I want to point out before we go further, in this case, I'm going to do the Control Option U first.
Headings menu.
And you can see here we have the one American Airlines is the main, the start of the site. There is a travel update, so that although it's a 2, it's at the very top. I think that is there as an additional add-on probably because they're trying to let people know about updates to travel because of COVID. But you can see there's only one, and afterward we go 222, 33, 32. It basically is very well organized with the headings. If I go somewhere else, here are the form controls. These are like where the different buttons and forms are, and you can see where they go, and they're all well described, so I know what I'm clicking. You would imagine that if this did not say search button or just said button or something, it would be confusing. For the most part, everything is pretty well described, which is good.
No items in red spot landmarks menu.
This is the landmarks like navigation menu I was mentioning kind of earlier, where you have like your main navigation, your footer, travel updates. So you have just kind of quick links to a couple things, and that it looks very helpful for finding some things. The articles menu, this one does seem to be missing something. So we do see one here, as you can see, where there's text and there's a question mark, where maybe it shouldn't be included, or maybe it's just not described. This is the X. So the X to close the travel updates is not described. That is a little bit annoying if you are on a screen reader and you wanted to close this and get the headings there. You don't know how to do it because it's not there, which is kind of interesting. But basically, my point is that this is generally very well done. You have to keep in mind that they're constantly updating the website too, so it's very hard to maintain everything and make sure that there's not anything missing, but they did a very good job on the site. So let's start tabbing in here, and what I want to point out is as we tab through the site, what's important to keep in mind is that we should see it tab in a logical order as we go through, and everything should show up for us as we go.
Link. Information about U.S. testing, mask requirements, travel restrictions, and changing your trip. You are blank. How to find and redeem your travel credits on AA.com. Register. End of. Travel updates. Header. Banner. You are currently on the banner inside of web content. List 5 items. Link. Skip to global navigation. Link. Skip to link. Skip to link. United States English. Click to search AA.com. Register sign. 607. Search AA.com. Register sign. Search text field. Submit search button. End of list. You are American Airlines main navigation. One world link opens in a new window. Group. You are visited. Heading level 1. Link. Image. American Airlines. You are currently on main navigation. Navigation. You are list 5 items. You are currently main navigation. Navigation. List 5 items. You are plan travel. Menu pop-up collapsed button. You are currently on the button. To display a list of options, press Control Option Space. Visited. Link. Image. American Airlines. American Airlines main navigation. Plan travel. Menu pop-up collapsed button. List 5 items. You are currently on the button. To display a list of options, press Control Option Space.
I like how it says list 5 items. This is really clear, so you're able to know how many items there are as you're going through.
Travel information. AIDN. Link. Log. Link. Join. Link. Image. One link. Image. Convert hotel point to miles and earn 25% bonus miles. Convert hotel point to miles and earn 25% bonus miles. Previous slide. Next slide. Play slideshow. Book travel alerts. Important COVID-19 information. Today's offers. Welcome back to travel. Welcome back to travel. Enjoy everything you love about travel with great fares and flexibility. Search flights and book today. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Save with Avis and budget destination. Anywhere save up to 35% off base rates. Plus earn 500 advantage. Register. Sign bonus miles with Avis and budget. Book today to start saving. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Get the Verify app. Verify trademark. Digital health wallet. Creates a secure profile and upload travel and health documents to streamline check-in. Get the Verify app. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Using offers earned up to 10,000 miles per night on hotels. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Start earning miles with Venus Wines. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Log into your account to view special offers. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Discover everyday ways to earn miles. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. More specials. Save up to 40% on miles. Save up to 40% on miles. Welcome travel back into your life and save when you buy miles on miles. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Earn 50,000 bonus miles. City registered sign. Slash Advantage registered sign. Credit card plus. Earn 2x miles at restaurants and gas stations. Terms apply. Learn more. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. Group. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
What's interesting about this is that it's way too long. So you can hear it as it was reading. It was just very long. And for a screen reader user, they're probably not going to want to listen to all that or even be able to follow it. And you can see how that would be kind of confusing, and they should try and reduce that so that it's a much clearer of where the link's going and not providing all that detail, or maybe providing it as an option below written out or something. But what they did there was definitely too long for a link or image description. What's interesting about this is as they have this nice visual slideshow, but there's no way for a screen reader user to get the image description of the different pictures themselves. You can play it or pause it, but you can't really get the description of what you're looking at. Or it'd be nice as well if it was written out, because then you could think about, oh, well, this place is over in Utah, maybe I want to go there, or this place is Europe or Paris or whatnot. But they don't really have the description there, so that is kind of a bummer.
Book. Selected. Tab. 1 of 3. Manage trip / check-in. Flight status. Tab. 3 of 3. Search flight. Selected. Search vacation packages. Link. Hotel. Opens another site in a new window. Link. Car. Opens in a new window. Link. Hotel. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
As I mentioned, the website for American Airlines has to be very accessible because it's airline travel. But hotels and other websites where they link to, they're making a disclaimer that it may not be as accessible as this site, which is interesting to note as well.
Link. Car. Search flights round trip. Selected. Radio button. 1 of 2. You are currently on a selected radio button. 1 of 2.
We can also see here all the buttons are well described. So you're basically, as you're going through, we're seeing the description for each button.
Search flights 1 way. Radio button. 2 of 2. You are currently on a radio button. 2 of 2. To select this option, press Control Option Space. Selected. Search flights round trip. Radio button. 1 of 2. You are currently search flights 1 way. Selected. Radio button. 2 of 2. Search flights selected. You are currently on a selected radio button. 1 of 2.
Now notice it says selected radio button 2 of 2 or 1 of 2. But at first you hear round trip in 1 way, which is good. So we are getting some knowledge of where we are.
Search flights 1 way. Radio button. 2 of 2. Redeem miles. Unchecked. Checkbox. From OEK. Insertion at beginning of text. From edit text. You are currently on a text field. Link. From airport. OEK. Insertion at beginning of text. From edit text. You are from OEK. Insertion at beginning of text. From edit text. You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type.
So we know this is from. It's saying from, and we'll get to 2.
2. Link. From airport lookup. Chrome has new window 2. You are currently on a text to city or airport. Edit text. You are currently on a text field. To enter link. To airport. Number of passengers. Chrome 1. Number of passengers. Menu pop-up collapsed button. Depart. Depart. Date format mm/td. Open calendar. To navigate. Return. Date format mm. Return. Date format mm/td/ii. mm/td/ii. Edit text. You are currently on a text field. To enter text in this field, type.
This is really cool because sometimes things occur only with mouse where they should be working with the keyboard. We can see here that I've navigated to the return, and we can see that the full calendar pops up, which is really great.
Open calendar. To search button. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space. Chrome has new window. Search. Visited. Link. Bag and optional fees. Chrome has new window. You are currently on a link. Link. Changes to check bag fees and allow. Link. ID requirements. Link. Advanced/multi-city search. Link. Travel alerts. Important COVID 19 for link. Heading level 2. Planning a trip. You link. Heading level 2. Prepare for the air. We're committed to giving link. Heading level 2. Chat with us. Have questions about your trip. End of. Important COVID 19 information. Region. Heading level 2. Today's offers. You link. Heading level 3. Welcome back to travel. Welcome. Link. Heading level 3. Save with 8% budget. Destination anywhere. Save up to. Link. Heading level 3. Get the very flash rate. Heading level 2. News and offers. List 4 items. You are currently on a list.
So we're now on this list of news and offers, and if I go into the list,
link. Earn up to 10,000 miles per night on hotels. Opens another site in a new window that may not meet accessibility guidelines. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
And again, we're getting the description, which is really good.
Link. End of list. Link. More special. Heading level 3. Save up to. Link. End of list. Link. More specials. End of list. You are currently on a list.
So what's nice there is that they have the list of the links too, and we can kind of just go down now to the end.
Link. Heading. Link. Save up to 40% on heading level 3. Save up to 40% on miles. You are currently on heading level 3.
You can see here the heading level 3. These are smaller headings. So that kind of wraps up going through the website. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just close by going through a PDF. So first, this is the PDF, and I'm using Preview, which is not as good for accessibility. Most screen reader users will use Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Pro because Adobe's products generally are the best when interacting with a PDF, and I'm just using the Preview for right now. Let's just go over and see if we can interact a little bit with the document.
Documents group. In Documents group. 5 items. Page 2. Page 4. Preview. Page 3. Page 4. Page 2. Page 4. You are currently on a page inside of the group. To exit this group, press Control Option Shift up arrow. Page 2. You are currently on a page inside of the group. To exit page 4. Page 2. Page 2. Preview has new window. You are currently on a page inside of the group. To exit this group, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So I'm going to go into this group.
Page 2. 22 items. Heading level 3. AutoCAD PDF. Heading level 3. Auto dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot slash dot dot /users/jmashburn/desktop/screen%20 %202015-2020 %20% You are
So
currently
this did not, this jumped down here where it should not have. It should have went to scripts.
If the PDF isn't tagged, heading level 3 script. If the heading level 3 auto tag PDF.
So you can see the read order is messing up because we should be going from auto tag to scripts to scan documents, descriptive file name, and then assistive technologies, and then this image. And the image should be described. Obviously, this one is not described.
If the PDF isn't tagged, you can heading level 3 scripts. Scripts in a PDF have heading level 3 scan documents. If a document was heading level 3 descriptive file name, part of 508 accessible heading level 3 assistive technology access. You are currently on heading level 3 inside of a page. Heading menu.
So I'm just going to show you the headings. What's interesting with this is I noticed with preview it does not read out the headings.
Heading level 3 assistive technology access. Heading level 3 assistive technology access.
So it does not read convert documents or tag PDFs in the headings menu when I'm going through, which is kind of interesting.
Window spots menu. No items in table menu. Image menu.
You can see these images are not well described at all. They don't have any alt text. It's just all gibberish.
Link menu.
There are some links that are described there, which is good, but the click here doesn't tell you anything.
Heading menu. Window spots menu. No items in table menu.
I plan to talk about tables in a later video, but thank you so much. I hope you found this informative and interesting. Thank you so much for watching. If you are interested, please join my Discord. The link is in the description, and you can share with me your experiences using this accessibility info, and maybe you can also take my survey, which is also linked in the description too. I hope to see you in the next episode.